We were talking earlier about where we were 40 years ago today. I was on in local news in Birmingham. Never heard of the Falklands before. We all had to look it up. You were at school.
I was at school.
Yeah. Where were you, Robert?
I think I was at home, but I came into the BBC and there was a very pompous defence correspondent, and I won't name him, who said, oh, yes, we sort of think we've got something under control and they may send something or other. But it wasn't even decided then whether they were going to send the task force. One of the things that is actually, from a news point of view, is still very alive, how much people knew, how much the Foreign Office knew, and how much it concealed. Because in the Franks report, which came out in 83, the year after, said, exonerated the government, but there were great pages redacted of the intelligence beforehand.
But isn't that why John Nott resigned?
No, John Nott stayed. It was Humphrey Atkins and, above all, Peter Carrington.
Peter Carrington, that's Lord Carrington.
The hero, to name the dead, is Captain Nick Barker of Endurance, who was saying, look, something is up, something is really up here, you know, sailing around with Endurance, having continuous difficulties with the Argentines. And when the Argentines went in a fortnight before in South Georgia, he more or less said that this is it. But there was a lot of sort of pursing lips in Whitehall. There are still people who were in Whitehall that day who believe we shouldn't have done it.
We shouldn't have sent a task force?
At all.
I mean, which is remarkable in a sense, isn't it? Because, I mean, you know, from these overseas territories, I mean, I've never been to the Falklands, but I'm in Gibraltar quite a lot.
Have you been on Exmoor and Dartmoor and a bit of Ben Nevis? You've got the sketch.
It's about how patriotic these people, how very British these overseas territories are, how passionate they are about being connected to
I think the point was a point of principle. It was a British national territory. And the other thing that the naysayers and say it gave Britain an impression about its military prowess above its station, which is also what I've encountered with Whitehall warriors from that time. But also the soft left said that, of course, it was fine to be taken over by a really bad boy regime like that of Galtieri. I still can't compute that in my head, albeit we had to get into bed with a really equally rather unpleasant one with Pinochet and Chile.
We did, though, send out that task force. You were embedded, were you, with them?
I was an accredited correspondent. I was a WC, a war correspondent.
Wait, how did you get out there?
I got out there on the Canberra.
On the Canberra.
And how did I get on the islands? I went out of a rubbish skip called a small landing craft utility. And by a toenail, I think I was the first journo ashore with two para at the bottom end of San Carlos on the 21st of May.
Yeah.
And what was that experience like? Because, I mean, I know from people I know, friends I have who were fighting in the Falklands, that actually it's when you talk to them and you get the reality of what actually happened and losing their friends and comrades and all the rest of it, which is just horrific.
Well, in a way, compared to what's going on in Ukraine right now, and the kind of test that the journalists who are brilliant are going under, it seems quite small. But you've got the point. It was incredibly intense. Big moments, and it was incredibly intimate. You had all this patriotism and stuff, but actually with the Paras and Marines, whom I was with most of the time, it was just getting on with the business. And when the first battle I got involved in, was right in the middle of, was at Goose Green.
Yeah.
And it was about the size of about 1.5 2 municipal golf courses. And there were about... We thought, talking to the second in command who took over command from H. Jones, Chris Keeble, we thought there were about 400-500 maximum involved all told. And as the thing unfolded, it was quite clear there were 1,000 plus on the other side. There were only 450 of the paras, two para. And the revelation was that 120 or so islanders, contrary to what the SAS had told us, they said nobody was in the settlement, were banged up and were hostages right in the middle of it. And if the Brits had gone on shelling for a second day as they moved into the settlement, we could have had a really horrific outcome. Yeah.
OK, look, Robert, we've got to leave it there timing-wise, but it's really good to talk.
Oh, it really is amazing.
Thank you.
40 years on, can you believe it?